film. Tale of the Tape. It's a very familiar name, Kim. I was wondering if you had a name in naming the film.
No. So Malik named the film. I want to say that because Tale of the Tape, as we know, was an old column in the source. But I've seen many people do that with things because in the source, when we were at the source, we had so many different columns and people were familiar with them and sometimes not familiar enough to realize that it's an old source column, right? Like
Yeah, it's very few people will
if
get that.
right. So if it's not like an unsigned hype, like if I did a documentary and it was called Unsigned Hype, people would be like, come on. But it was a name that Malik had.
Nice. And then Malik, how did you hook up with Kim? How did this union start? I know you guys both come from hip hop, staples. So, but how did you guys link up for this project?
Well, I was fortunate enough to have met Kim through like we did production work at BET. And that at that time it was spread out on different floors, different departments and whatnot. But for important projects, I would like to think some of the best people end up working together. Like, but you kind of energy kind of finds a way. And when I started this journey of like, okay, I want to make this doc. Um, I don't know. She just kind of like was the first person I went to once I'm like, I need your, we need to partner up and team up for this.
You forgot. He forgot. So I think, I don't know, Malik, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when we started doing it, so we worked together at BET and we were working on some outside projects as well. And do you remember Raiders of the Lost Art, Malik?
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So we did a project. It was a very short form doc called Raiders of the Lost Art. It was on Prime when they were going into the studio, collaborating on their album. And I think both of us just really were so hands on with that and loved what came out of it. Um, it's on YouTube now, I believe. I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so after that project, we talked about doing Tale of the Tape. And this was something like specifically in the mixtape lane.
And how long ago was that? Because I feel like when you watch a film, there's so many, a lot of footage that you guys have been collecting over the years and a lot of legends. And we'll get into that. But how long ago was that start of that conversation?
10 years at least.
Wow.
At least. Yeah. Yeah.
And
This is
how do you work on a film for 10 years? Like, do you guys meet up once a year, meet up, like how do you schedule that for this film to be out now?
No, so when it comes to like production, right, like getting interviews and whatnot, you know, you got to be savvy, try to be as savvy and like book things on the back end of certain trips. And you get talent as they become available, especially artists. DJs can be a little bit easier to get um, if you're getting them from Monday through Thursday because they travel for work the end of the week. That's their busy season, busy time. And we were meeting a lot more than that. Communication was always open, phone calls, text. We went to edit, to post kind of early just to kind of like see what we have. As soon as we get an interview, we're transcribing it, we're picking out what the best bites are. And as we put together the story structure, we're seeing where the holes are that we can fill. So we were meeting a lot.
I'm sure. And you guys, as I mentioned earlier, you have so many legends in the business in this film, which is an amazing feat. Like, I don't think I've seen so many, especially hip hop historians in one film. Talk about collecting these gems and these people and these sit downs that just really just you can't put a price on.
Yeah, I'll say from the DJ space, whether it's Brucey B, Kid Capri, and Doo-Wop, to me, those were like really, really important, because they laid the groundwork for a lot of mixtape culture. Brucey B is still uptown in New York. He's still doing parties. Doo-Wop does a lot of traveling. He's in Baltimore, primarily, and we know Kid Capri is just, he's worldwide. It's funny, I actually was able to get his interview. I was at a filming for Hip Hop Cypher, and he was one of the
Um,
DJs. And I was like, okay, I know he's going to be here for 2 days straight, so we're going to carve out some time to kind of get this done. So yeah, that it was, like I said, it was very important that we got those three guys. Doo-Wop, he just, I called him, I got his number through a friend, and I said, look, first of all, I want to interview. Second, I want to buy your entire mixtape collection. Because now these guys, they sell it on USB flash drives as opposed to, for what they can find from their old catalog. And we met on his corner that he grew up in the Bronx. I had a camera with me, just one camera and audio. And we just, stood there, and I would like to think just kind of had him retell history.
Kim, do you have a favorite interview that stuck out to you, or someone you were able to touch with? Because I'm sure you had a lot of friends in there.
It's funny you say that because all of these interviews were conducted by Malik. So I wasn't at any of the interviews. I'm I'm obviously a huge fan of Kendrick. So I loved seeing him in the tape, right? And I just think watching these present day and seeing how much the artists that participate and DJs have grown over the years was probably my favorite part. I love nostalgia, and I think that's one of the great things about Tale of the Tape is like it can give you that nostalgic feeling by just knowing that this is the conversation, this was the conversation that these artists were talking about when we got the footage.
Yeah.
Um,
If I could just jump in real quick. Also,
yeah,
that
go
Kendrick
for it.
interview it took place in Atlanta. He was in Atlanta for the BET Hip Hop Awards, but he didn't have a project out. He only had out Section 80. He wasn't like doing anything active, for his label, so to speak. So he had a show with Dom Kennedy. He was co-headlining with Dom Kennedy, and Two Chainz and Big Sean and Saha the Prince opened for him at that venue. And it really was like a DJ Drama presents. And I went to the show with Drama just to kind of like hang out and capture some footage. And I end up speaking to him there.
Which is let me just piggyback off of that and say how great that is when you're able to do it as a storyteller. Like one of those things we do is we're always sort of thinking ahead and thinking of the story and chasing and finding the story. OJ, I'm sure you can remember when we almost got the Kendrick, not the cover we did with the crown, but when he was supposed to be on that cover
Oh,
with Mac Miller and Tyga,
oh,
right?
now you telling secrets.
Yeah, because that was right on the cusp of
Yes.
like his breakthrough. And and as you know, he came to the photo shoot. He was going to do it, and
Yes.
his label reps were calling him basically like pumping the brakes because they were involved. So in Tale of the Tape, just having heard Malik's story, knowing that it was like right there, right on time, right before the label started to really drive like how they wanted to see him. Like, look, we think you're a big artist. You shouldn't be sharing a cover
Right.
with other artists right now. I think that we were lucky to have caught up with him early. You know what I'm saying? And get that footage and get his perspective on it.
In the same regard, you were also lucky to get some people before they pass. You have like Combat Jack in there, who's no longer with us, so you also have that perspective too, where you got like footage before these legends are no longer with us, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Combat Jack, and Kim probably know him way longer than I've known him. You know him as Reggie, I know him as Combat. But, he was very, to me, he was a very inviting person, and was always willing to give advice. Because, he was also a lawyer before a
Of
podcast. So
course, yeah.
not most people, know him. But I was really fortunate. We were really fortunate to get that interview as well.
And Malik, you touched on it a little bit now that mixtapes are now in USB drives. Can we talk about a little bit of the transformation of the mixtape over the years and like how that's changed and how that reflects in the film?
I think now a lot of mixtapes they're basically playlists. They're playlists on Tidal, they're playlists on Spotify. Kim made it a huge point for make sure D Nice and what he was doing with Club Quarantine. Because I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Like this, live stream of DJing, especially during the pandemic, was huge. And I think that kind of like that's where the mixtape kind of turned to, and that's where it's gone. Oddly enough, during the pandemic, whether it was D Nice, whether it was Knife Wonder with Fast Auntie series and Questlove, those were my favorite mixes that I was tuning into. But yeah, I think that's the way that the mixtape is going now.
Is there a mixtape that sits with both of you and your like that like is like a core memory for you guys at a point of your life? Is that does that exist for you guys at all? You
We
both
get asked this question a lot. No, we get asked this question a lot. And I'm trying not to change my answer, right? Because it's
well, give
been
us
so
the
long
real.
since well, Malik, say yours, because you got one that you always stick with.
Oh, it's Doo-Wop 95 Live. It's DJ Doo-Wop. Like I said, he was one of the few DJs that can actually rap really, really well enough to where he even had a label deal, a record deal. He had a crew that he was putting on the Bounce Squad, and 95 Live had the biggest artists at the time from every borough, uh, pretty much, collab. It felt like an album. And that mixtape actually was what made Drama want to make sure he did his mixtapes in a certain way in regards to like just the quality of it.
Mine is a Kid Capri mixtape, and like on other interviews, I've kind of like just thrown the name out there. Malik kept saying, "Oh, it was 52 beats," or is that what you were saying? It's not that one. It's a Kid Capri mixtape. After this interview, I'm gonna figure it out. The mixtape had a blend of soul to soul, and I remember this mixtape, and I particularly remember it. I can't speak because when I was very young, I lost a friend who was killed, and I remember we played the mixtape when we took the coffin around the block. So that mixtape is like very, very like I connected with that time, but it was just that summer. It was like a tape that we just had playing all the time. But it's a soul to soul blend. I'm gonna find out what it is.
Do you both feel like the mixtape doesn't get enough credit for what it's done for hip hop? Like, do you feel like I feel like when you look back on hip hop and which is such a big word, but and it, just a big everything. But do you feel like the mixtape doesn't get enough credit for what it's done for people's careers in that matter and the shift of culture that mixtapes have?
No, I don't think it has, and I think the situation that happened with DJ Drama and the Feds, etc., is a classic example of why it has not been appreciated for all that he was doing for the artistry, for all he was doing for, increasing the labels' bottom lines and pushing the culture forward with these artists. He helped blow up, help catapult Jeezy, he helped blow up Wayne, Gucci Man, all of these guys. All of that is from the mixtape.
Oh my gosh. So tell me ultimately why this film is the biggest thing you should watch as a hip hop head, as a person who loves hip hop, person who loves mixtapes, elevator pitch. Why is this important for us to watch?
Well, I'll give my explanation first, and I'll say that this is 100% representative of the culture. I think anybody that from, all age groups can appreciate this. The mixtape touches on every era in hip hop since its inception, pretty much. And I think it's important that people know who helped lay the groundwork for this and how things have when we tell a story from a linear perspective. But everybody's favorite artists, past, present, and now, come from mixtapes. Plain and simple.
I think the mixtape has evolved so much into so many different versions of what it is that you really gotta do your homework and know the history. So I would say people need to watch so they just have that background, especially in this day and age where so much time has passed and you see a lot of selective memory. And I think that we need to continue to honor the foundation, and even specifically in this DJ genre.
It would be great to see DJs take a page and be like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to do what Ron G did, and I'm gonna do my version now. I think that would be dope.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time to sit with me. Um, I'm gonna be telling people to watch Tale of the Tape just for you, Kimmy.
Thanks, OJ.
And then that's it. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.